Welcome and thank you for joining us today, part 5 of our 5-part economic development series. Today's topic is redesigning life, and we will talk about how the future office and public gathering places will look different and how we are going to adapt. I'd like to thank our sponsor today, Intermix Beverage. Jim Wagner, who runs Intermix Beverage, is on our board. And the goal at Intermix Beverage is to make your coffee better. They spent over the 30 years supporting businesses of all sizes and types, from coffee shops and restaurants to national chains and universities, in elevating their beverage program to the next level. They offer a wide variety of specialty products to match your vision, budget, and business goals, and they're passionate about helping you succeed in the specialty coffee industry. So thank you, Intermix Beverage, for your support. And a reminder to keep yourself on mute. And if you have any questions, you can enter them into the chat. And at this time, I would like to turn the program over to our moderator from Pope Architects. Please welcome Jill.
Chad, I'm Jill Schrader from Pope Architects, as Chad said. Our office is based in St. Paul, and I'm a senior planner, and I primarily work in our housing division, and I'm actively involved in the creation of the revision of the regulations for the FGI guidelines that help assist and guide our new buildings in development for a nationwide effort. So I will now introduce our panelists, and as I introduce each of you, I will ask that you will tell everyone how your organization is adapting during the pandemic and your plans for reopening if you're not currently open. Marcy McHenry is the owner of Midpoint Event Center in St. Paul. She founded her first company, Dancers Studio, in 1986 in an old firehouse on Snelling Avenue, which went on to win the Prestige Award of Best Ballroom Dance Studio in the Twin Cities by Minneapolis-St. Paul Magazine. Marcy now enjoys adding joy to people's lives by hosting their special events in a venue that she recreated to her vision, from a rundown bingo hall to a stunning modern venue with 2 halls and 4 gorgeous ballrooms. Marcy's vision celebrates diverse gatherings that include corporate events, social and nonprofit events, weddings and receptions, all while embracing core communities in the heart of the Twin Cities. She has assembled and leads a well-rounded, dedicated staff who continue to add innovation and excitement in the event and dance industries in the Twin Cities. Marcy is a new board member of the Midway Chamber of Commerce, a board member of the National Association of Women Business Owners, a member of the St. Paul Chamber of Commerce, Twin Cities Wedding and Event Professionals, Visit St. Paul, and Meet Minneapolis. And out of all of her accomplishments, Marcy would say that she is most proud of her successful, compassionate, and talented children who continue to push her to be a better person every day. Marcy. I think you need to take yourself off mute, Marcy.
Hi, Jill. Thank you. It's great seeing everyone. I miss everyone. Yes, I own Midpoint Event Center in St. Paul and Dancer Studio. And our business was impacted by the pandemic like many others. We have been closed. We were closed down on March 17th due to the governor's orders. We did have to furlough quite a few of our employees. None of the dance instructors were able to teach through that time. Midpoint Event Center has been closed. I did keep some key staff on because we're still getting inquiries for events. We still do have some events on the books in the future, so we did need to have coordination still happening with all of that. We were in the process of preparing to open on June 10th, stocking up on PPE, on masks, sanitizer, Clorox wipes. I have lots in my garage if anybody needs any. But then due to other circumstances, we're still not able to open up at this point in time, but we are hoping to in the future.
All right, thank you, Marcy. Tim Parody has over 20 years experience in the furnishings and architectural industry. He's currently Vice President, Sales of Prevolve, a premier and award-winning dealership headquartered in St. Paul, Minnesota, with a secondary location in Chicago, Illinois. Tim is influential in fostering client relationships, locally and nationally founded in partnership and focused on long-term success. He's a past committee and board member of the International Facility Management Association and a supporter and volunteer with organizations like Habitat for Humanity and the Ronald McDonald House. Tim.
Well, good morning. Like many others, the pandemic has been an unusual and trying time for us to work through. As a company with 2 locations in 2 varying cities, here locally in the metro, we've been fortunate, in fact, that we've been deemed essential due to many of the clients that we serve. So we have not been shut down at all, but we did scale back the number of employees, certainly in the office and in our warehouse and showroom area. But in Chicago, we've had to deal with the fact that nobody's back in the office hardly at all. And we actually office out of the merchandise mart. And just as of last week, we were allowed to bring employees back, but the protocol is long and tenuous just to get in the building.
Yeah.
So we've chosen to leave that showroom and office closed and work from home. We've been practicing a flexible work environment for many years. So we were lucky in the fact that when we started this new journey, many of our employees already were fully set up with technology to be able to work anywhere at any time. And so our ability to limit the number of staff in and out and kind of control our internal work environment seemed to pan out very, very well for us.
Very good. So no one is working in the merchandise mart? They're all working from home?
For our staff, yes. There are some groups that have decided to reopen, but the way that they're working through the elevator protocols and the different floors and how many people can be on it and how you get through the screening process is very different than what we're seeing here right now. In fact, some of our employees went out for a walk for the first time a week ago because they were unable to even walk in their neighborhoods.
Wow. Wow. That's interesting. Okay. Thank you, Tim. Tom Whaley is an owner and executive vice president of business affairs for the St. Paul Saints. Go Saints! The St. Louis, Missouri native is a recovering attorney who began a career in baseball accidentally in 1992 when he sold a team sponsorship package to a client on the courthouse steps in St. Paul. From 1993 to 1998, Whaley served as the Saints Director of Operations and Assistant General Manager. During 1999 and 2000, he was Corporate Sales Director for Major League Baseball's Tampa Bay Devil Rays. He returned to St. Paul in 2002 in his current capacity, acquired an ownership interest in the team, and was extensively involved with the Saints' effort to secure funding for and develop CHS Field. Whaley is a past board chair of the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce, past chair of the Midway Chamber of Commerce, and board member of the Japan America Society of Minnesota, and past board member of the St. Paul Festival and Heritage Foundation. In 2018, he was inducted into the Irish American Baseball Hall of Fame and was Mr. Pat in St. Paul in 2019. Tom, I think you need to take yourself off mute.
I do that all the time. Good morning. I hope everybody's well. Yeah, so I dive right in with the Saints. Other than we should be playing games right now, internally we've really, I think, kept operating. Obviously, business is very different, but we've kept operating. We've got a smaller staff. We have 19 full-time employees, and haven't had to go through any layoffs or adjustments with our payroll. We did seek some of the various assistances that were out there, and that helped get us through as well. We are finding that our season ticket holders and our sponsors of the team, sponsorship partners, have been incredibly understanding through this thing, and that's just been absolutely huge. And I think everybody, that's the one thing I'm going to take away from this when we sort of get a little bit further past it, is just how everybody realizes we're all in some regard in the same boat. So that's been heartening to say the least. So right now we should be, but we can't be playing games. We were at the ballpark. We were part of the executive order that closed down the bars and restaurants. And although that's been lifted, capacities are very much reduced. And at the current levels, with the way part of the issue is I won't get too far into the weeds on it, but it was very definite the way things were shut down. There's an executive order, pretty much put the chains on the gates, and that was that. As we come out of it, they're not doing it the same way. The state's not, as far as I understand. They want us to have a plan in place. They want us to be operating in accordance with guidelines, but they don't want to see your plan, and they aren't going to get in the business of approving it and telling you can reopen in sort of the same manner. So you're sort of groping around in the dark trying to figure out how we're going to open and what it's going to look like. I did a few of us in the office went down to Canterbury Park, which I think we're a little bit more like, a lot more like Canterbury Park than we are, say, Target Field or some of the bigger venues. So we did go down there last night on a field trip and just sort of watched how they're doing it. And I think that's the direction in which we'll proceed. Right now, we're scheduled to play our home games starting July 3rd in Sioux Falls. South Dakota, North Dakota, and Wisconsin have very few restrictions. And we found out yesterday that our partner team in Rosemont, Illinois, and Chicago is able to open, albeit with reduced capacity. So they'll be opening. So I just leave it there for now.
That's very interesting. Okay, so I have a number of questions that I wanted to ask all of you panelists, and I'm going to ask them out of order. I hope you're all right with that. But for all of you who are watching this is being recorded, so if you do need to step away, you can view it later. If you have some questions, please, I welcome you to put them in the chat, and I'll try to read the questions to the panelists if we haven't already covered them in the questions that we've already pre-written. So Tom, because you just described what you just saw in trying to observe how you should move forward from the Saints perspective and where you're going to be playing games, I'm going to go right to the sporting question. We're used to going to sporting events where we sit right next to, in front of, and behind many others. Same with concerts. Are the days of being shoulder to shoulder with others over? What's your response? Do you know the answer? Because we're all eager to go to a baseball game.
I feel like the Johnny Carson Swami. I should ask a question here. No, I don't. For the foreseeable future, it's definitely going to be different. And I think in part it's because, we're going to be operating under different guidelines. But also I just think people, and it just, you see them when you go, to the grocery store, or, even like really good friends, people I know really well. You don't know how to greet each other when you come up to each other anymore. It's just a really weird thing. So yes, it's going to be different in part because people are going to be different, but yeah, I think it's going to be around for a while. We're not going back to 2019. So everybody's just gotta learn to live with this thing. And I think, so it's going to require investments in certain types of technology. One that really do screen, but the other thing, it's all about getting people comfortable being in your business. And I think, certain of them, there's a certain sliver of the population that's not going to care. They're going to go out and sort of do things the way they always did. There's another sliver that's not going to do anything because they're terrified of it. And in the middle, I think, people are just going to want to see that you as a business care about it, and their health matters to you, and their sense of security or safety matters to you. So, to some extent, I'm not going to say it's for show because, if you're doing a health screening, that's a substantive thing to do. But I think a lot of it is going to be, sort of for show. You're going to need to, just show people, and that'll build the trust back. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's going to be a very different world. And I think, I don't know, we're never going back to.
Right. I think it's a great response because we don't quite know the answer. It was what I'm hearing. So it's I'm eager. If I can speak for myself, I'm eager to try to go back to that normal kind of world that we used to be in. So I'm very curious how we can get back to those group gatherings and get everyone comfortable, as you said. So all right. Tim, I'm going to ask this question to you because in Prevolve, you are representing a tremendous number of manufacturers out there. And so maybe you have heard from a response from the manufacturers that you do represent. Here's the question. Many industries are having workers operate next to each other, particularly in manufacturing. Will the pandemic lead to more automation and fewer workers? Or what is the response that you're hearing back from those manufacturers?
Boy, that's a loaded question. We've got.
I'm full of loaded questions this morning.
So you are correct in that, we deal with multitudes of manufacturers, but, if I could pick our top 10 that we work with on a regular basis, they're scattered throughout the US and Canada. And our Canadian partners are a little bit different than we are here in the US. Some were, quite honestly, furloughed to their employees and were shut down for a period of 2 months while they collected backlog from requests from dealers throughout the country. In the US, we haven't seen as much of that. We've been fortunate that our main manufacturer, Inscape, which is in Canada and New York, were deemed essential as well. So we were able to process through for our clients all the typical requests they have. What we're finding right now is that there isn't really going to be a switch back to automation. They're looking to bring back as many employees as they possibly can, but they have to do it in a safe and conscientious way on their floor, especially on the manufacturing floor. But what we're dealing with now is the recapture of all the backlog that is sitting within the system, trying to get those types of projects churned out from our different manufacturers. And then we can start to deal with what we would call current requests. But current requests have gone from 5 to 6 weeks for a turn on just-in-time manufacturing to 12 to 14, maybe 16 weeks, just because there's so much pressure on that system right now, and there's a limited number of employees that these manufacturers are bringing back in. So they're slowly stepping into the process. But everyone we've talked to is expecting to be back at full capacity somewhere within the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I was curious on how business will kind of re-pick up as they had to close for a little bit and now still meet those deadlines. So how that wouldn't work. Marcy, I'm going to ask you this question. Beyond your location, how will our society change in our public and meeting spaces and even gathering spaces? What's your response on this one?
Sure. Things definitely will change. I second what everybody else is saying. Gatherings are going to be smaller. We're going to have, weddings, maybe more mini weddings, more immediate family. Tables are going to be socially distanced from each other. Dancing is going to look a whole lot different in social events. There might not be one designated dance floor at an event. People might be dancing around their tables because they're a little farther apart from each other. Indoor, outdoor events, I think, or just outdoor events are going to become more popular just because people feel safer outdoors. I was at an outdoor concert actually this past weekend, and there was in a parking lot, and there was plenty of room. People were up dancing, not in big groups, but next to their significant other or whoever they were there with. So I do think that it is possible. It's just going to look different. Okay.
Thank you. The next questions are open to any of the three of you to respond. And so I invite you to unmute yourself and respond here. Will offices in different industries react differently? An open question, not sure that any of you know the answer, but what is the response on that one? Will offices in different industries react differently?
I'll jump in and try and do a little something with this because it's interesting. We have requests coming in daily, right, from a variety of different industries throughout the metro, and of course Chicago as well. But when we speak specifically about right here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and I wish there was a magical wand that we could wave that would give an answer to everyone, but there is no real prescription as to how an individual business is going to adapt for their employees. What we're finding is lots of requests maybe to raise panels, add sneeze guards, do all of these different things. Not everyone is implementing, some are waiting. I think that's partly based on how many individuals are going to bring back into their environment at one time and how they can lay out different floor plans for, you know, maybe an occupied, unoccupied, occupied type scenario throughout their floor space. Maybe 50% of their employees are going to come back. But I think what we're finding is each company has to work their protocols around what works for their staff. And that may take some surveying of the group. Yes, we have to make certain decisions at a management level to protect our employees, but there's going to be a group that, as Tom was saying earlier, don't want a whole bunch of regulations. There's going to be groups that want lots of regulations on what's going to happen, and we've got to find a nice, happy medium. But I do know, because this question was posed to me the other day, they said, you know, the office environment is gone. That was what was brought up to me. And I guess my answer to that is I don't believe that whatsoever. I really don't think that's going to happen. Inherently, as individuals, we want social interaction. And for many companies, they need to have employees. They can't base everything off of technology. It just doesn't work. You're in an industry where you need to sit down and look at plans with a coworker. You need to work through those different scenarios, if you will, for the work that you have at hand. And it's really difficult to do it all through technology. So it's going to be one size does not fit all process. But I believe that the return to work is going to happen. Yes, it will look a bit different, but I believe that in the next 6, 8, 12 months, you're going to find that most companies have found ways to engage their employees in ways that work, and they're going to see their physical environments starting to fill again.
I think that's a great response, because one size does not fit all is exactly it. That collaboration is needed in employees, and so it can't always happen, as you said, from the digital perspective. We've got a question here from Russ from Clever Architecture. We've seen many violations of codes and ADA requirements as businesses reopen to meet new requirements. How do we reopen and ensure that we don't discriminate or jeopardize life safety while reopening? I know I'm the moderator, but could I take a stab at this? I'll break the rules here. As I said, I'm on the team, a very small team, of revising the FGI guidelines, the Facility Guidelines Institute, for both healthcare and residential. And from the acute care or hospital side of things, we're looking at hospitals, how they responded to the COVID pandemic here, and then also skilled nursing or long-term care facilities and assisted livings, how they've responded and what has happened there. So, and I'm talking above and beyond St. Paul here to the national perspective of what has happened in New York, what has happened out in the West Coast, and taking lessons learned urgently there. So the question is, we've seen many violations of codes and ADA requirements as businesses reopen to meet new requirements. On that statement alone, the urgent response, there's 4 phases to the response to the pandemic. There's that urgent or critical response, which in the hospital setting and long-term care might mean tents that needed to mitigate the spread of the virus. So tents were temporary, and then immediate or critical. Then there's the temporary, and in the temporary stage, it meant different things. It meant certain codes, certain mechanical codes, ADA requirements, whether or not those need to be met. Then the next one is semi-permanent and permanent. So there's 4 levels of a response from our industry here. And in each of those, we identify where we need to meet those requirements and guidelines. So we're trying to define that right now. This had never happened before, this pandemic, so this was all new. So you're right, there are a lot of things that have happened where it didn't necessarily meet everyone's needs, and that's very unfair. But now, in preparation, now that we've had some time to look at some businesses and some companies and some hospitals and what was done, how can we do it better if we have another resurge of the virus? We're trying to define in this stage, you need to meet these requirements, etc. Hopefully that makes sense. If any of the three of you want to respond to the rest of that question, please speak up. All right, I'm going to read on to this from Russ. Oh, yes, Marcy?
No.
I didn't know if that, okay. All right.
No, you did great, Jill.
Okay. Hopefully that makes sense, but we're trying to define it. I think all of the response so far wasn't immediate and critical. Like, here's how the best that we can do. And was it right? Not fair to everyone, but we're trying to react and respond and get things going. And now we're trying to do it even better. And how can we do it better? Okay, the next part of that question is, what will the impact to the social aspect of the What will be the impact to the social aspect of the work environment? And how do we stay connected? As an example, at Clever Architecture, we are passing around a canvas to create a group painting to help us stay connected. And how are you all doing it? That is fantastic, Russ. That I love that idea of creating a group painting. That's fantastic because we want to be energized and we want to collaborate. All right, Tim, Tom, Marcy, how are you guys staying connected?
I can take that. You know, I think it's challenging because over Zoom meetings, you know, group phone calls, it's challenging to keep people motivated. You know, I'm very much a hands-on in the office. I generally have younger staff, so I want to keep them motivated. We're very customer service friendly, so to continue to do that is very important to us, and we look forward to when we're able to get back to that. You know, now we do group conference calls. We try to meet every once in a while, once a week maybe, and do like a walking tour over in the Midway, or we do, you know, a variety of different things just to stay connected so we know, you know, that we're all still on the same page. But it is challenging and I do miss it a lot. Can't wait to get back together again.
I agree. Tom or Tim, you have anything to comment on that? How are you guys staying connected?
Sure. We have a call. We actually have, our staff has, I think I mentioned before, we've got 19 folks that are full time. We have a call every morning at 9 o'clock and then one at 3 o'clock as well. And I, you know, myself and Derek Scherer are the old people around the office. So, you know, we try to lead by example. And you know, I sort of turned the 3 o'clock into a happy hour, and everybody's like, wow, you're knocking off early. And you know, I'm not going to lie, I do have a drink on occasion at 3 o'clock. So, but and we turned the 3 o'clock was sort of like a sales call. What did you do today? You know, I think early on it might've been an accountability thing because we were really concerned, at least I was, that, you know, from a productivity standpoint, just the change in going to, you know, not being around each other and in the office was just going to be weird. And so we started, it was a sales call really at 3 o'clock every day. And that sort of morphed into this social thing where we've stayed connected. And, you know, if somebody's got their camera muted or off, you know, we'll get on them and tell them, hey, we want to see your face. And they're like, no, I haven't showered yet, you know. And so there's, you know, and it's 3 p.m. So everybody's like, we just try to have fun with the fact that it's just sort of dive into the weirdness of it and just, you know, try to be part of it. So it's, and we've done that, you know, we have had a few events as well at the ballpark, and we found that everybody was really just dying to get back to the office. I mean, they really wanted to be, we all basically like each other. So it was fun to be around, but you can't do that every day, you know, right now. So it's, yeah, it's a challenge, and I don't know, there's as many different businesses are, there's ways to do it. I love the idea about the painting. I think that's very cool.
No, I think that canvas. Tim, do you have anything to say on how your company is staying connected together?
You know, much to what Tom was just saying is, you know, we, as I stated earlier, we've been deemed essential. So we've had an ebb and flow of individuals in the office, especially in the last month, on a more regular basis. But it's happenstance if you run into someone. So we've decided each and every Monday we do a lunch where the staff is invited to come in. We've got a very large showroom, so we set it up where we can socially distance, and we've been, you know, we've upped up the cleaning within the space. So whether it's a tour, which we are still doing, surprisingly, we've had several tours lately. And there's a new process to try and do a tour and make sure everybody's needs have been met correctly. But we're bringing the staff in and having a lunch and enjoying each other's time. We do it for just an hour, and it's a come if you can. And we're finding right now that we're probably 95% of our staff comes back every Monday and wants to sit down, have lunch. Again, it goes back to what I said earlier. We're human beings. We want social interaction. And as Tom mentioned, our staff is dying to get back in on a regular basis. They want to be here each and every day because we hold each other accountable that way. Much easier than it is to do something through a technology-based system where I won't say you can hide, but there are ways to not be as engaged as you may be when you're face to face.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that, Justin. You do a trivia contest, so with their staff, and these are all ways where, you know, where you're trying to keep some sense of normalcy, and so I just that's a great idea. I love that. So you're creating a sort of a little contest, and you know, I wonder, I hope that, you know, a lot of these things that we're doing actually enhance us in the, you know, our operations in the long run. I think we are going to find some things when we come out, you know, a little bit more on the other side of it that were, you know, that we didn't know, and you know, hopefully we keep those things in place. It really, in the long run, it does. We're doing it now because it's almost necessary, but going forward, I think, you know, I think we may find, you know, hey, that worked really well. We're going to may not have done it before. We're going to keep doing it.
Yeah. You know, our firm is similar to those responses, that we're doing little get-togethers, we're choosing themes, etc. But also too, we've come to realize, and this question hasn't come up, but we've come to realize that value on the small businesses. And in our small group, we're not a real large architecture firm, but we're messaging each other too in teams is primarily what we're using to communicate, but ideas and favorite things that we've purchased before or visited in another small business, so that just keep that in mind if they do open again and everything else. It's kind of fun just to think and plan for revisiting and giving more business to the small businesses in our local area, which is very important. I'm going to ask another question. In addition to the pandemic, the Midway is dealing with property damage after civil unrest. Many businesses are currently closed and some buildings are completely destroyed. As we reimagine the Midway, how will lessons we learned during the pandemic help shape the new look of University Avenue? Who wants to take that question first?
I can start with that. I can start, since my business is in the Midway and we were affected by the damages. First of all, my heart goes out to all of the businesses that, you know, have been destroyed or impacted by the riots. You know, I was talking to, you know, some of my staff and my friends the other day, is, you know, these people are our friends. You know, they're our colleagues, they're our clients. There are people that we know on a regular basis. So I'm very sad for that. The portion of the building where we are actually at, the front portion of the Midway Shopping Center, did have fire damage and looting. So we are currently closed because of that, although our midpoint is still very much intact. But they are evaluating the whole building to see, you know, when we're able to reopen, how we're going to be able to reopen. So it's definitely devastating for so many businesses. And I'm hoping that people are going to be able to find a way to survive and be stronger because of it. I do think that in the Midway, I mean, we probably just, and where these other destructions happen, you know, there needs to be more security. we need to have more presence of security teams so that we can prevent this sort of thing.
Tim or Tom?
I think one of the things I go back to something John Harrington, who's I believe he's the public safety commissioner for the state right now, but when he was the St. Paul police chief, we were talking about potentially having the moving the ballpark downtown, and a question came up. We were at a luncheon at some point. Somebody asked him, what can you do, chief, to make this particular area of town that they were talking about safer? And he said, I can tell you the best thing you can do is put a lot of good people in that area, or try to do the things to bring as many good people to an area. He said, because the one thing I've learned is the bad guys go away when there's lots of good people around. So that's the number one thing you can do to deter crime, or deter if a lot of good people are around. And I think we're seeing some of that in Lower Town right now as businesses have been working remotely. I see it more and more. So I don't know. I mean, it's an impossible question to answer. What can we do to strengthen, or what will it look like coming out of it? But it's really got to be about more people. John was laughing. He said, it's not going to solve my problem because I'll just go somewhere else, but it will solve your problem. So whatever we can be doing to create more traffic, make spaces more inviting so that people want to be around it, is the best thing we're going to be able to do it is really about place and feeling comfortable. And if you can do that, that's going to do way more than, more law enforcement or more security, I think.
Yeah, feeling comfortable back in these spaces that are currently covered with plywood and all that too, is just making it feel better to
I have an interesting observation too. We were, with all the stuff, we had stuff going on during the civil unrest that happened about a month ago. The ballpark is very open. It's easy to see. It's porous. You can see in and out of it and whatnot. We had no damage, and I'm just wondering if maybe that's something we could possibly take a cue from. Is that if we're more open, if it looks like it's maybe hidden, or you can hide in it somewhere, maybe that in a strange way, even though it may actually be stronger, it's less safe. So I don't know if that makes sense, but the more open and the more visible people are, maybe they're less likely to do bad stuff.
Well, and you're bringing up an interesting part of redesigning, the possible redesigning or reapproach of a space, thinking about it differently and how you enter. So I'm going to ask this question that's written in chat. Again, please ask questions in chat. Tony Mendoza asks, do you foresee a need for significant increases in capital investment for businesses and organizations necessary to redesign workspaces, plants, stores, etc.? And I'm going to say that question goes for a physical property and or a technological investment as well. What's your response, all three of you, on this?
I'll take the first stab at it if you want. I think there is going to be a need for capital investment. There's going to be new products if we're going to look at the internal space. And I'm not saying strictly furnishings, but there are going to be a need for some additional products that are set up to meet the needs of your staff, right? Your employees, whether that's higher panels, or if those are some kinds of guards, if there's some mobile boards that can be put in place to quarantine off certain areas of your building, because we're going to have to reestablish how our work environment is internally, right? What we used to think of as great breakout areas may not be great breakout areas for a while. They may become areas for overflow workstations. We're going to have to find a way to stagger how our employees work, potentially. So I think you're going to see a need for capital investment internally, and or you're going to have to reutilize existing product in a very different way, which is going to be a cause for certainly some dollars spent to reorganize what that looks like. Obviously, in your industry, you know that we're doing circles on plans, right, to try and develop what 6 feet is from the person next to you to the person next to you, and how does that work. And what we're seeing a lot of our clients do is, it may be raising of panels and other things, but it's really about taking their physical environment and figuring out how they stagger the work environment so that they can maximize the number of people in the space, utilizing the products that they have, redeveloping some of the overflow areas that they have. Maybe training rooms and so on become an area where they store extra seating and extra stations that they don't want in use for a period of time, or they take the screens off certain areas so employees know they can't use that. It's become, it's a redesign of existing space. I don't know that you need more space, but we are finding some organizations that are actually grabbing on more space so that they can keep the number of employees they have, and they overflow them into a newly leased 5,000 square feet where they can add those extra stations they need adjacent to where they work. So we are definitely seeing that there's going to be a need for some spend to make this work, and that can come in hard physical assets, that may come in just a redevelopment of what's already existing.
Okay. I'm going to go
I do think, and so this is Tom, I do think you're going to need to make some investments. I was, when we went to Canterbury Park last night, for instance, you come in and there's a greeter at the front door, and it's basically, and we found out later, they're relatively inexpensive. They're about $1,200 a unit, but you basically just step up to an iPad basically, and it's been fitted with software that measures your temperature. And you just walk up to it and you get within about, I don't know, a foot or two of the screen, and it's just a picture of your face. And then, you know, it's got a really nice greeting, you know, welcome to Canterbury Park or whatever. And then you go through. And again, it does perform a health safety function, but it also, I don't know, you go through, you just have this sense of, oh, okay, you know, they're checking on other people here. And if there is somebody that happens to have a temperature, I guess it's possible I'm sure they wouldn't let them in. So I don't know, there's this sense of more safety, but then those were $1,200 a unit, I think. So, that's somewhat manageable. But yeah, there's no question we're going to have to invest in it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. What about in that same vein too, and Marcy, you already explained it too, the differences of what this will mean from the ballroom and dancing perspective, but that entertainment of, I didn't realize until now this shelter in place took place how much my life was affected by entertainment and going out and visiting restaurants. And I mean, what about the reorganization or redesign or rethinking there for venues that are based around entertainment and crowd gatherings such as that? The art industry, the theater. Any thoughts on that hasn't already been reviewed, but any thoughts?
It's tough. And I think that different people, have such different views on it. I know that there are friends of mine who are organizers of a ballroom dance competition that happens in July every year, are actually moving forward with their ballroom dance competition at the Hyatt Regency in Minneapolis. And that's on July 11th, like 2 weeks away. So, I mean, they're planning to do some social distancing, not have as many couples on the dance floor. They're not having as many people in the ballroom, but they're still moving forward. So I was a bit shocked. I was texting with one of the organizers yesterday. He doesn't have as many entries and participation as what he's had in the past, but they're going to still move forward doing it. So I think, different people have different perspectives on moving forward with entertainment. A lot of the venues I know in town are open. Some of the events that we've had to cancel, I know, have moved to different events, Minneapolis Event Center, some of the other event centers. So they're making a way to make it work, whether it be, shorter time frames, changing how they're serving food, probably not buffets anymore. They're going to be doing
Right.
plate meals. You know, how they're going to set up their entertainment, if in fact they're going to have entertainment at all during you know, a wedding reception or something like that. So smaller, more intimate events. Our plan was to take some of our, we have 2 halls, a smaller hall that can host 150 and then a larger hall. We were going to take some of the smaller events and move them over to the larger hall, so we were able to social distance them, propose indoor, outdoor opportunities for people. So, you know, I think different people have different thoughts, and obviously the safety of the employees and the safety of the clients is the most important thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Chad,
that
I know
answers
that
your
I'm the
question.
moderator. Yes, Chad, I know that I'm the moderator, but I'm probably breaking the rules here, but I will say, speaking for myself, as a come to realization for this entertainment thing, this change that has taken place, I feel that around the horizon that the cost of attending these entertainment, you know, anything like this would go up, and I feel I'm ready for it. I'm like double the cost. I'm probably not speaking for everyone, so I apologize, but I'm like, there has to be an increase of cost of attending, and I'd be willing to pay for it because I want to go see. I want to see the arts. I want to go to the sports venues, and whatever it takes. I know that it will be half the population attending because you can't sit next to each other or whatnot, but I really want to get back into the swing of things, of our normal routine of things, and I know that there's going to be a cost to that. So I'm not sure if that's been covered before, but I, for one, as a resident here, am willing to pay that extra dollar to invest in that. So I know, Chad, I'm breaking the rules as a moderator on that. Okay, we are out of time, and I do want to thank our panelists for today's conversation. There was a lot of good insight on what to expect in our future workplace, both while we're still in the pandemic and afterward. And I will now turn it back to you, Chad.
You know what, Jill, actually, we do have a few more minutes left. If we can get to a few more questions. I know that there's at least one more in the chat. So if we can have a few more, we've got some time.
Let me see the question. Okay, here's another one on the midway. How will the damage that's been done along university, I'm guessing, accelerate the changes for Midpoint and plans for the redevelopment?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it?
It is.
Does anybody have the answer to that for me? I do think things will change. We don't know, you know, the timeline on that, and if there are any decisions that have been made. Obviously, I'm keeping contact with, you know, insurance companies and the landlord, and obviously all of the parties involved. But I think there are no concrete answers right now.
I think that's a question that we probably would earmark to ask in future webinars such as this, so that we'll know as time is changing. It's like not a day-by-day basis, but a week. As things evolve, we might know some more answers on what that might be. It's an ever evolving. Okay, next one is CPTED design principles do say through research that more open and more glass actually reduces crime because it extends ownership and the feeling of more eyes into common areas of cuties. Crime prevention through environmental design. CPTED. On a practical matter, men's urinals will be one of the biggest challenges. Oh, good point. We are already redesigning restrooms where there were individual walled off stalls.
Well, I did have a drink or two at Canterbury last night, so I can tell you what they're doing down there. They just have signs up on the walls. They didn't redesign anything. It's like we're the classic bathroom, and to ladies, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I apologize. Some of you may. But no, they're just stickers up on the wall, basically, that say, you know, it's just a request, a friendly thing, you know, please keep distance. And that was actually, you know, and it was great. The 2 times I visited, there, you know, everybody was, you know, following the rules. And at one point, it was crowded, and there was a line out, and there were obviously stalls available, but people were like, no, it's, you know, it's all good with, you know, you can't go where the sticker's on the wall. So everybody was, you know, that's the thing I found too. I mean, you know, some people get hot and bothered about, about the restrictions, but I think most people, I mean, I would say over 90% when I'm out and about, people are respectful, you know.
Yeah.
So be interesting to see. I hadn't, that was funny about the urinals, because that's
Yeah.
true.
Those men's areas, I tell you,
Yeah.
they're filthy, right? You know, that probably explains too. I was just in the airport why some of the bathrooms were closed. I wonder if it's a urinal thing, but for the most part, I'm seeing mostly people respect the rules. How will the cost, here's another question, from Russell Peterson, how will the cost per square foot change in rent since capacity per square foot will change? And I read the question wrong on cities and not cuties, but sorry about that, Russell. Anyone take a stab at how the cost per square foot will change? And I'm not sure that it would change. I think it would go up, but what's your thoughts on that? All right, we'll earmark that for the next webinar, where maybe we have a developer on board here. How much actual support have damaged property owners gotten from government officials, and to what extent have they committed to sensible enforcement of the rule of law to enable business owners and their customers to feel safe? How much actual support have damaged property owners gotten from government officials? Marcy, maybe
I think that there's, I think there's a lot of discussion about it. I don't think that there are any answers. The special session didn't, they didn't make any resolutions. So I think there's a lot of discussions. I think that government officials are listening. They would like to help. I just don't know that there are any answers at this point in time. I know DEED did put out a new $10,000 grant, more related to the pandemic for small business owners that people can apply for. Just the application, I think, came out 2 or 3 days ago. But I haven't seen anything else at this point. Does anybody else know?
I don't know either on that. Okay, next question. What will the capacity be for events, Tom? I just bought tickets for a July 3rd movie night.
God bless you, Terry. Thank you. No, yeah, we're doing a 4th of July fireworks show at the ballpark. The capacity is going to be just under 1,000. That's kind of our first event. And, hopefully if that goes well, it'll lead to us being able to play some home games in. But we'll be at, I think, just under 900. So it'll be a little strange where we've got, to make sure everybody's, socially distant. We're selling some areas on the field where people can bring blankets and go down. There's a movie before, and then the fireworks later, and then the area of the seating section. And that's kind of how it's strange. They define it as an area, or they say no more than, I think it's 25% of capacity up to 250 people in an area, and they don't define what an area is. So you're sort of left to figure it out for yourself. So that's what we're doing. We're just gonna, start small and go from there. So, but yeah, that'll be our first one. And I think Marcy made the point too. We're starting to just get out and go do things, and it's going to be weird, but you can't not do it. We're not going to live like this forever. So yeah, so that's how we'll be handling it. Our hope is we could get capacity up somewhere in the 2,000 range, and then we may or may not be making money at that point, but the main thing is we're out there and up and running again, which is
Tom, do you see using your facility as another outlet, again, filling all the time of doing more activities? And I think that, is that your goal as well, is just a nonstop run of activities to use your space? It seems.
Yeah, we're just, it's constantly trying to think of looking at the place in a different way. We've stayed out of doing any kind of food service. We're not at all sort of a restaurant. Everything's tied to our events, but we did start, and actually the restaurants in Lower Town were happy to see us. We started this thing called the Pop-Up Cafe, which is just, we're open for lunch every day. And we never wanted to compete with the restaurants, but in talking to some of them, they were like, no, for the love of God, we need more people down here. So open up,
right.
Please open up. So, we did that, and yeah, we're it's outdoors, which I think is an advantage right now because that's perceived, I think, by both the government folks, health folks, and patrons as maybe being a little more safe than an indoor. So
yeah. What do we hear, or what do we know about the farmers markets? Again, we're almost out of time, but I'm throwing in my question on there just to bring people together. Is that out of the question of?
They've been open.
Okay.
So
Okay. All right. One more question. It's 8:59. We have one more minute. In addition to DEED, Ramsey County has a small business relief fund program funded by CARES Act. My understanding is that the first round is closed with 850 applications received, but the second round will open soon. Good information. Thank you, Tony. Now we are officially ending. Is there any additional thoughts that that each of you have on this subject as we close? And again, it's being recorded so people can view this later. Any additional closing thoughts? Tim, I'm going to start with you.
Sure, I go back to when LEED became a big part of our conversation with buildings and the environment in which they're being built and how they're being built. And something that a few of us took as a principle away from that is it's called building smart. And I think that's what we're going to find here is if you can't achieve everything that would create you to be a LEED certified or LEED accredited building, it's about building smart. It's about doing things the way that you would want to do it, to be environmentally conscious, but yet practical in what you have available for capital and cash, and how are you going to pay for it all, right? I think that we're going to see the same thing as we go through this. We need to be smart about how we're going to address our environments for our employees and to what differing levels they have of what's considered acceptable and normal and sufficient. There is, again, no one size fits all. And I think if we as management, owners, business people just sit back and gather what we can from our teams and put in smart, practical applications of protocols, I think we'll do just fine.
Thank you, Tim. Marcy, any additional thoughts?
I'm with you, Jill, ready to get out and spend extra on entertainment.
I know.
Tom, it's great to see you guys doing some things. You guys are outdoors, so I think that's a perfect way to start opening things up. As long as it's safe for your employees and safe for your customers.
Thank you, Marcy. Tom, any additional thoughts, real quick?
No, I just hope we look at this as an opportunity. It's been a huge drag on everybody to do it, but I think that's what we're trying to do is to try. I mean, it gives you a great opportunity. This hasn't happened before. It may never happen again. And what did you learn out of it? What did you take away from it? And so that's how I think. That's what we're trying to impart to our staff. Yes, your life has changed. Yes, in many ways it might not be as good or as convenient as it was, but step outside and try to find maybe looking at things in a different way. So I'm energized by it personally but I'm weird. So
well, again, thank you to the three of you, and now I'm going to turn it back over to you, Chad.
Great. Thank you, Jill. Thanks, panelists. Thank you to Intermix Beverage for their support today. This audio recording will be available later today and will be sent out to all attendees. Thanks to everyone who listened in on our summit. We will continue with more programming geared toward economic development and the Midway neighborhood in the next coming weeks here. And also happy birthday to Tom Farnham. So thanks for joining us on your birthday today, Tom. Thank you, everybody.